Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, former President of Nigeria and Concordia Leadership Council member.
Good morning, Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. As a Concordia Leadership Council member, I am very happy to be amongst you this morning. And I believe that one of the most critical aspects of Concordia's work is its regional programming, which brings together the key stakeholders from across sectors to work on more local and geography-specific problem solving. Over the years, one thing I have recognized is the importance not only of building collaboration within regions, but also the power of bringing together leaders from different regions to share lessons they have learned in addressing similar challenges and pursuing similar goals, which is why I am so delighted to be here today with you in Bogota. Many of the challenges and opportunities being discussed and that will be discussed during this summit, such as leveraging digital technology, addressing migration, countering corruption, fostering a strong business environment, and ensuring peace and security are all incredibly relevant to the African situation and African context. It is my sincere belief that Latin America and Africa have a lot to offer each other. So I hope that Latin American and African political, business, and civil society leaders can work together more and more to share strategies for impact and for innovation. In this spirit, it is my distinct honor as an active participant and supporter of the recently launched Concordian African Initiative to introduce someone who has been so integral to the development of the Concordia Americas Initiative. Over the years, President Duque has been one of the Concordia's most ardent supporters. He has been extraordinarily engaged in Concordia's work to drive social impact in Colombia and the entire region. And he is someone who, throughout his career, has championed the value of gatherings like this one and the power of cross-sector partnership. During his presidency, President Duque has demonstrated critical leadership on numerous issues. And let me mention a few of them. He has been a true international leader amidst the tenuous situation and crisis in Venezuela, and demonstrated the important role Colombia has in regional security. He has worked to advance Colombia's business environment for small, medium, and large companies. And he has led a vigorous effort to enhance Colombia's use of renewable energy around the country. His insights and leadership are very significant, not just for Colombia and the Latin America region, but for the globe at large. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join me in inviting to come on stage President Iván Duque to address us. Mr. President.
Thank you so much. Muy buenos días
Good morning
a todos ustedes.
to all of you. For me, it's a great honor to be here again in this great Concordia's event, and I would like to greet our great friend, our ex-president of Colombia, Álvaro Uribe Vélez. Thank you very much, Mr. Uribe. I would like to greet Vice President of Colombia, Marta Lucía Ramírez. I would like to salute the members of our cabinet. I would like to greet the General Petraeus, Senator Scott, Perry's secretary, our great friend, the the president of the Development Bank, Mr. Moreno, all the members of the delegation of the U.S. and other guest nations, President Quiroga, President de la Calle. For me, it's a great pleasure to greet you right here and welcome you in Colombia. For me, it's a great honor to be a part of this event after many months where I was greeted and received by Matthew Sweet last year in this Concordia event as an elected president of Colombia. In that gathering, we talked and we said that we had an important issue to talk about in regards of Colombia's future, and we had pointed out, we had highlighted after a long campaign this concept that the future belongs to us. And what was our intention with that? We wanted to talk with Colombians, to communicate to our Colombians the important urgency of closing gaps and constructing this road of opportunities, and to locate Colombia within the global framework in order to perform great transformations. That's why we highlighted the idea of reflecting, of thinking about this year in regards of correcting aspects from the past and construct the road for the future. In Colombia, it's a country with different ethnicities. Colombia is a resilient nation, full of creative power of a lot of entrepreneurs, talented entrepreneurs. A country that has overcome a lot of barriers and that shows the great attitude of and the resistance of these regions in order to specialize in different sectors of the economy at the same time shows this great capability of evolving along with the talent of its citizens and developing that incredible creative force. That definition of Colombia, this is something that we're really proud of. and this is also connected with something that it's a characteristic. It's our own identity of turning adversity into an opportunity. But we cannot lie in this case. We need to be aware of those challenges that we needed to change, that we needed to overcome from the past. And the first one that it's not mentioned a lot in this public discussion, it has to do with this working informality. It's this, we're talking about our economy. We need to be aware that our country today has more than 50% of its workforce. It's not under the formal structure of social security. It's not contributing with taxes, and they're not saving for their pension. And if we do not understand that confronting this situation, this is the vehicle in order to transform our healthcare into a sustainable system, and towards a financial sustainable system where we're heading the wrong way. We needed to be aware from the first date about this new challenge that the government was assuming. And number two, corruption is a global threat, and it's a threat. It's a regional threat, and it's a national threat. Different stakeholders that a lot of times hide under wrong principles, like for example, having illegal contracts, or sometimes having, including cartels of these contractors with this. And a lot of times we see disconnections between that economical power and politics at regional and national level, and including this fight against corruption in the middle of the debate, in order to be more transparent, in order to have a better institutional dialogue, in order to have transparent contracting, in order to have that scrutiny, thinking about the behavior of our governors. That also was in the middle of our proposal in regards to what we received from a historical point of view, and it has gone through these difficulties thinking about our future challenges. And besides that, unfortunately, we would have to mention that terrible scenario of the illicit crops. And for the last 5 years before our government came into power, Colombia observed we went from less than 60,000 hectares to incredible numbers when talking about this illegal crops. And that's a threat. That's an ecological threat, because when a hectare, a coke hectare is developed, we have terrible environmental impacts. We have a lot of chemicals, dangerous chemicals, in the tropical forests of this humid environment. And besides that, we see corruption in these local agencies and national agencies, and illegal groups are there in order to threaten the correct functioning of that institutional order in the territories. We need to correct that, what we received from the past, in order to construct a better future. And that's why this is really important. We need to say that from the very first day. And of course, that when we think about the future, when we think about that future road, when we had incredible difficulties from the fiscal point of view, or we also had problems in what had to do in regards to the development of the private sector, we try to communicate to Colombians from that long campaign, and from the government started, that the construction of the future starts from these three concepts: legal framework, fighting organized crime, fighting corruption, and to confront all this corruption methods, entrepreneurship, because Colombia and Latin American nations, they need to move away from that shameful idea that defending the private initiative is something that shouldn't be expressed with energy. The entrepreneurship from the small worker that starts a family business in order to survive, until the consolidated big company that's the best vehicle in order to generate prosperity within a society. And if we do not want that road, let's just look at what is going on just a few kilometers away with a totalitarian regime has been affecting this society. So putting entrepreneurship in the middle of the development discussion, it's absolutely important, because only those countries with this type of culture are the ones that can fight poverty. And we need to motivate that in society, that the success of any type of entrepreneur, from big to small to big, when it generates formal employment, that's the best vehicle for progress, because it's generating formal employment in society. And probably the most important or most difficult issue is to locate this equality of conditions in the center of the discussion. And a lot of people have said that this is not a clear concept. It's confusing. It's not so easy to define. And maybe the easiest way to describe what we mean by that concept has to do with the generation of opportunities within our society. If we want to go beyond and we want to be a nation of high income, we need to do that, closing those gaps even more, when in Colombia, just 12% of kids that go to public schools, they go for a complete work day, school day of 7 hours, especially when we have more than 500 inhabitants that today do not have access to electrical services in their households, especially when we have more than 250 municipalities where the quality of water for their inhabitants, it's not the best in terms of purity, and and could be a threat to their health. It's thinking about equal conditions. That means that we are focusing on this in order to expand dynamically this middle class, and so that the country can close these gaps between social sectors and between regions. That's why when we decided to focus on these equal conditions from the government, we wanted to correct the false debate of equal conditions, because what we want to do is we want to provide these opportunities that we need each person to construct their own life project. That's why the focus or the hub of our agenda, we know this as agreement for Colombia, or agreement for equal conditions, because here in this case we want to have an agreement between the different stakeholders among these regions, where we're focusing on the things where we are alike, and the things that where we come together, instead of the points where we are divided, because the debate cannot be based on these ideologies between left wing and right wings. It's about understanding these common sense points. It's about a society that develops this entrepreneurship. It's not divided between left and right. It's about common sense. It's about putting the entrepreneurship as the main engine for development. It's about having this access. It's not about dividing. We're talking about common sense, and that's why I have said that before. I want to say it again here. This country is not absorbed by the debate between left and right debate. What is going on here is that there's a minority that wants to destruct, in comparison to a majority that wants to construct. So here we have a minority that, when confronts a problem, they want to protest, and we have a great number of people that they want to focus on proposals and focus on actions. There's a minority that always wants to focus on aggressions, and a great number of Colombians that want to concentrate in solutions. That's why the focus of this agreement for Colombia, and agreement for fairness. How have we constructed this? Through a broad exercise of citizen dialogue. We have gone through a lot of sessions every weekend. We have gone through different regions in Colombia through workshops constructing this nation, where we have heard the different proposals, the ideas, the frustrations, complaints from all members of society, and we come up with sustainable and acceptable agreements from the state in order to recover that ingredient of trust. Because when we have trust among that relationship between state and citizens, we mitigate that permanent calling of going to recurring to those protests in order to fight for their rights. So this is very important. It's very important to focus on that proposals in the middle of all these differences. So I would also like to add that we, from the first day of our government, we have tried to confront a lot of challenges that Colombians face. We have tried to guarantee more better safety conditions in the streets of our countries. We have promoted electronic reports, and we have been there creating this civic network that can collaborate with the different authorities. And right now, we have more than 1 million citizens because we understand that through that collaboration, we could be more efficient in the flow of information so that we can have better conditions. And of course, that we're facing challenges. But for me, I'm really pleased to see that so far this year, we have seen an incredible, a very good reduction in homicide rate, reduction in theft numbers and vehicle theft. We are facing difficulties, but the truth is that this collaboration based on results and indicators has to produce a better quality of life for Colombians, and this is part of our focus.
In this sense, also we took a decision because we don't want the macro traffic to be on the streets of Colombia that is going to become an instrument to criminalize the school environments and also the family environments in the Colombian families. For years, all the drug dealers in Colombia that were hiding the cell, that would shield themselves in the authorities, what they were using is just hiding in small doses so they can flow or walk around the streets. What they were doing it was destroying the youth environment in the country. That's why in 9 months my government would make the decision of carry out a decree that is forbidding the personal doses in the country, in the streets of the in the country, and it's not just with the idea of criminalize the consumer. It's with the idea to establish the sanction in the citizens and improve the environments, and that's why we can recover thousands of school environments and also thousands of parks that are for the Colombian family. Of course, we are worried we can take in care because the concept of safety is can be seen as a democratical value, also as a principle to guarantee the free of our citizens. And also we have big proposal for the economical growth. Many of you were asking why Colombia was having a mediocre growth on the order of 1.4 in 2017. Maybe the answer is uh, that an economy cannot grow and a formalized employment when we have a strong taxation system for the small and the middle companies. At the end, it will just make them believe to create a different kind of formal employments and also reduction of the investments in the long term. One of the first proposals that we did to Colombia was the reactivation of the economy. And we went to the Congress with all the team of our governments and different kind of parties, and we built a financial scheme, a law that it was lowering the taxation system for the small companies with different kind of subjects that is like this kind of 100% of the tax to the capital, the reduction to the even to the raise of different kind of taxes, and also the differentiation of the size of the companies in the simplifier regimen, and also using the technology for zero taxes for the stop housing technology and creative industries so the youth the new entrepreneurs can start. And the same thing with the rural sectors, zero rent tax for the people in the countryside, so we can create more workforce. We have effects that we can feel right now. The Colombian economy saw a growth of 2.8, and the expectative of growth for this year is above the 3.2, 3.3, and 3.5, depending of the tool that we can use for to measure it. But what is true, in truth, we have to create. We're trying to create a well-being for our community. This is also going with the trying to erase the concept of the pilgrimage of bureaucracy, something that is that torture is creating an indirect tax on something that is even worse, a focus of corruption for the excess of discretionality from some workers, which is something worse because we have also monopoly in the information management. We launch a campaign that is called Simple Colombia Agile, which is more than 200 processes that were intervened, so we can erase them, eliminate it, or reduce, or making them totally digitalized. I can say that we have more than 211 processes that are not there anymore, and the goal is to have less than 900 of them per year. So the system of management will be oriented to the well-being of the Colombian population, because the state that is and bureaucracy is transferring those costs to the society. We have established also the tourism strategy as a new oil for Colombia. Why we say that? Because this is a country of many regions, because this is a country that has natural parks like Tirigua, Picachos, La Macarena, the National Park of Ren, which is a place that is a humanity patrimony with the name of Maloca de Jaguar, the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, the one that we have in the Rosario Islands outside Cartagena, a natural richness that is ready to be known for the world, and also a big promotion. In 2018, we closed with the most important year for the tourism in the recent history of Colombia, with more than 2.4 million of visitors, that most occupation in hotels in 14 years old. Our goal is to keep growing this area and overcome the 5.26 million of tourists, because we have a strong inspiration for the Colombian people and a big generator of employment and transformation. That's why we are focused in open the opportunities of tourism. Just last Friday, we went in La Guajira, showing the tourism development and the potential that department like La Guajira, with hundreds of kilometers of beach, that has a huge potential for the world and for the country. That's why we have established this in the middle of Colombia development. We also have made a more deep reflection how we can provide to the creative industry the push that they need. We're talking about the arts, the festivals, the carnivals, the gastronomy, the films, the music, theater, architecture, publicity, the functional creations, like they say. That sector represents 3.2 of the PIB. It's much more some traditional industries that have a big capability to employ the youth. We are trying to establish these zero taxes for these creative sectors, creating at least a minimal of investments and also minimal of employments. And also in our development plan, we have promoting an important strategy. All the successful benefits of the film industry were extended to all the creative industry in Colombia, so they can become one of the most important development engines in our country. The industrial development to be able to provide to the Colombian industry to invest in capital that can be transformed. This is implies a formalization in the entrepreneur. If in the country 50% of our workforce is in informality, is working the same way in the entrepreneurship. 60% of our companies are showing that there are companies that they don't even have minimal requirements. So we can build this dynamic entrepreneurship dynamic in this area. We launched the public policy of formalization of companies. With this kind of regimen, we're trying to let these small companies that had never thought about doing the formalization of the companies as an option because they were thinking about getting extinguished after that. They can do it with a unique tariff through this tax that is controlling that, and they can sustain themselves to the growth. And also, for us is really important the connectivity. This is not a matter of antennas of phones. This is um, a matter of quality of life. That's why with some weeks of this meeting, we are going to have the auction of 700 megahertz to increase the investment in the wide that the Colombians can use in order to access to a better service of connectivity, a better internet service that is going to succeed in a way to get more finance, to have the mobile banks in the more remote areas in Colombia. And when with the support of the Colombian Congress, this is going to become a reality to have a new law of the technologies of information and communications that is going to establish that Colombia in the road Colombia with a 4G excellency, and also to break through with excellences in the 5G technologies, so we can use the technology and a way to for the remote television and the remote medicine, also the financial services. We did also an important proposal. We have here the Minister of Transportation. When we started, 70% of projects connected with the infrastructure for generation were trapped in some legal complexities and management complexities. Our goal was for the month of March, try to untrap those projects and not just having them started, but also to dynamize the generation of employment. Today, we think that we accomplished that mission. We just not untrap them, but also most of them are in execution, creating employment to more than 80,000 of Colombian citizens, and we're going to see these amounts in 3 months when you can see the development. This is showing that this objective conclude is not just to think about the resources in some years, because we couldn't continue different kind of projects for different governments because we couldn't get the credit. What is important for us is to complete these infrastructures, and the only credit for us, the connection, is the satisfaction in all the Colombian citizens. My invitation for all of you, when we're talking about the Colombian Pact for the Equality, is that we should understand that we have some quiet social revolutions that already started. We believe that the education is the way of opportunities. And we start this year, 2019, with the highest budget for the education. We increased the resources for scholar food in more than 42%. And we believe that we have to keep continuing with multiplying the number of kids that have these micronutrients for all the scholar days, so they can have the brains ready for the learning. Because a kid that is that is hungry cannot understand, but when a kid has all the nutrients for the prefrontal area in the brain, they can learn better. This is something that we started this year. Also, we can say that we make a special interested in increasing the journal the school journal, we're going to go from the 12 to the 24%, so we can have a diverse curriculum with science, mathematics, language, are going to be working also with the creative formation, scientific, cultural formation, and also with the different kind of skills like programming. So trying to invest in 2022 to have more than 1,600,000 high schoolers with diploma of technical and also with the high school with the skills to work. We're waiting to have coding and data analysis are part of these kind of skills that are connected with the fourth industrial revolution. Another proposal is social areas. When someone is asking me what is equality, is showing in this picture a family that was condemned to be a forever rented. They were living in a small room and they were paying about $140 monthly. That they didn't have the opportunity to become the owners. Today they are building the dream of being an owner. Just a project that is called like the owners. So with the same amount of money, they can pay the money for a house that in the future will be part of the capital for the sons and also becoming part of the workforce in the country. In this year, we have more than 80,000 Colombians that can be benefit from this program. We're waiting for this amount, 200,000 families that can build this project and this dream, and this is going to become a state policy for the well-being of the country. We have big challenges in the health area, but we have started to fulfill some debts that were accumulated with the members of the Congress that are here. We established a scheme of last point period so we can clear some debts with the hospital web, and we can restart with new resources and fixing some of the structural problems that were an opportunity to abuse for the services. We have done an important proposal that is connected with the entrepreneur. Right now, through the Commerce Minister, we have a platform where we have many specialized to the small and middle companies, so they can see the productivity of those companies and they can advise these companies impact their growth. This week, they are going to do a new entrepreneur ecosystem that is called Colombia Entrepreneurs, where we have different kind of chambers and we can create convince to create different kind of strategies for capitals for these youth entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs. In terms of the seniors, we have forgotten as a section of our society that is forgotten. In other words, we can say that we have 5 million of Colombians that are older than 65 years old, around 1,800,000 in a critical situation of poverty. We need to cover that area, a vulnerable area, and also try to solve structurally the way they can include in the retirement insurance system, because we're going to have more than 8 or 9 million of people in 2040. We're going to have more than 100 of them. So we're going to have to give them money monthly, and we're going to have to double the resources for them next year, so we can put them above the line of poverty. In the countryside, we have more than 80% of Colombians that are in informality, and we have many of them that earn less than the minimum wage. We find that the big problem is not having a mechanism of agriculture by contracts. Thanks to the participation of many areas that help us to understand, to to build this program, we have agriculture by contract that is looking for having more than 300,000 small rural farmers that they can sell under a contract to a buyer without reducing the resources on the change, and also using a micro insurance system, because we understand that if we're making these producers sustainable, they are going to create opportunities and equality. Another important proposal for the equality, when we started our administration, we have 50 megas of renewable energies installed. Most of them were created between 2006 and 2010. We abandoned big projects of renewable energies, and in 9 months, with the private sector, right now Colombia has more than 100 megas, and we did an auction of compatibility that ensured 1,300 megas for the 2020, the most important percentual leap in Latin America. Also, with the private sector, that's what is so important, Concordia institution, the connection between the public and the private, having more than 500 Colombians that don't have electricity, with different kind of platforms, different kind of services. We're going to make an innovation contest with the mine ministry, so they can face the challenge. And also we have established, if this is the country with the biggest biodiversity per square kilometer after Brazil, if this is the country that has a big natural parks, we have to end that destroyed of the forest that is taking more than 200,000 hectares per year. We have established the program Artemisia with the environment minister, with the army and with the police, to punish the people that are destroying our forest, to have a clear goal to end that growth and to start to provide a reforestation culture to the country. So we are waiting for the 2020, having more than 180,000 new trees in the country. Working with that circular economy, so we can motivate the Colombians to recycle, reduce, and reuse. It's important also the way you can manage the water and the trash, and the way that we can use and reuse these products is key in today's world. Our goal is that the private sector and the local governments are compromised with this kind of proposed to have a more friendly environmental situation, so we can start to explore subjects like the mutation of trash, something that is called as waste to energy, something that it fills me with proud. Colombia established with the last year to be part of the fourth industrial revolution. We went to the United Nations Assembly, because from the bid so the Medellin's mayor and the national government to postulate ourselves for many convictions, and that Colombia could be in the World Economical Forum to be part of the fourth industrial revolution. It was told to us that it would take some time, and we didn't have time, because our government is just have 1 year, and you just have 1.5 years. But we worked together, and I can say that we signed that paper in Enero, and 10 days ago in Medellin. Medellin is one of the 5 cities in the world, the first in the Spanish spoken country that has a compromise with the fourth industrial revolution, where we are exploring projects in artificial intelligence and encrypted technology, blockchain. Colombia is in that discussion, so we can train better our citizens, so we can have a better regulation and regulation that is efficient, and we cannot lose in this run for the fourth industrial revolution. It motivates me that the last week in California, the famous 500 startups signed with the Colombia government a memorandum of understanding for the selection of Colombian companies that young entrepreneurs so they can grow and go to be startups to be
in order to become unicorns, where we already had the first unicorn in Colombia, thanks to the effort of our entrepreneurs in the last 3 years, with a company that was valued by more than $1 billion through the SoftBank. This accelerator is aware that Colombia is going to be the new home for these new big companies and unicorns for the following years, and that's the kind of ecosystem that we want for our country. Our economy, of course, it's facing challenges, just like the challenges that you guys are facing with your own government. President Obasanjo, I would like to thank you very much because of your introduction, because I remember your great interest in regards to Nigeria's growth. Then we're expecting our growth to overcome 3 or 4 or 5%, and from that point to transform our society. And I would like to focus on this image. Everything that we have been discussing, it's important in our roadmap, but our roadmap also has to do with our external affairs and with what is going on in this region, what is going on in Venezuela. It's a humanitarian drama, and sometimes I'm touched, personally speaking, when I see people that want to be passive observers in regards to what's happening in Venezuela, or they want to analyze, or they want to comment, be just speculating about what's going to happen tomorrow. When we observe a humanitarian tragedy, we cannot have a passive position, and that's why the invitation for all Latin American members is not about asking ourselves when is the regime going to fall, is what are we going to do in order to make that happen and reestablish the constitutional order. It's clear that we need to strengthen the diplomatic circle, like we are observing through the Lima group and through the different external agencies. We are aware that we need more sanctions, but we need to be really, really strict. If we are not, if people that do not care about what's going on in Venezuela, it's like that neighbor, for example, that at night it listens what's going on with the neighbor. Someone is beating their wife and they yell, and the next day they just pretend to say hi to their neighbor and they walk into the elevator as if nothing had happened. That indifference. So all the states that believe in this democracy, we need to press to apply this pressure, and we need to achieve that step towards liberty and the real democracy. I cannot stop referring to what a lot of people have asked in the hallways. They have asked me, what's going to happen? What's going to happen with the people that used to be part of this illegal groups and now they are getting back to society? This is the real image of the main base or main guerrilla base, that they want to step away from the from war, and they want to be a part of society. That's the main foundation. That's what we need to work on in order to reject violence, because they were also victims. They were victims of illegal recruitment. They were victims of rapes and crimes. And so far into our government, we have developed 22 projective or productive projects. And we have worked along with these groups, and I have been talking personally with them, because right there we can find the real soul on the heart of the construction of constructing that legal future. And that, for me, it's relevant. That's why we cannot be distracted through this political debates that they want to, where we lose focus. We are we are defending this position. We are defending this reincorporation to this legal framework, but we need to understand that we need to construct this peace through real justice, through real repair, and through non-repetition conditions. Because the worst thing that can happen to our victims is to be humiliated by the lack of proportionality in these sanctions to the aggressors. We have talked about a lot of issues, but all of them are chained in a single vision. The road, the Colombians' future. Don't worry about what is written up there. This is not a medical test. But what I would like you to understand is that the roadmap or Colombia's future, it's about focusing on a modern country, in focusing on a dynamic economy, a country that closes gaps, and that in that closing of those gaps, we can construct this equality. We have a lot of goals in this development plan, but the most important are to remove 1.5 million of Colombians from extreme poverty, 3.5 away from poverty. Our goal is to move from 1 to 2 million kids with comprehensive attention in healthcare. Our goal is to have 7 million kids with correct diet for 180 days in this continuous shift. Our goal is to have this 1,500 watts of renewable energy. Our goal is for us to have those 600,000 graduates with double degrees from secondary, 334,000 young members to be part of this public schooling, public college through this Generation E. Our goal is to broaden the internet coverage at 70% of Colombia's population. Our goal is for us to get rid of those debts in the healthcare system, and we can motivate this great potential in the whole network of the service providers. Our goal is also orientated towards training our teachers in a better way so that we can have thousands of teachers in the different areas with better technology access, with the objective of having a better educational level. We still have 1,182 days remaining in this government. Every day we have been working in order to come up with these results. We need to do it in order of different adversities that come up and that are natural in this period. But we have a roadmap. And what we have here, we have a government that is working along with all the local leaders of the country, regardless of their ideology or their political party. What we want here, we want to put Colombia in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution of the region. What we want here, we want the isolated parts of Colombia, we want hope to arise again in this vibrant environment. And our goal when we think about equality and we think about closing gaps is for the future and for the opportunities to reach all Colombians. Thank you very much.